The Six Kings. I can't even speak today, Connor. What's going on? Welcome back to the Sixth Kings podcast. I'm Ryan in Sacktown. That's Connor, Sea Dog. Hope everything's going well. Connor, it is the greatest time of the year. It's like Christmas Eve, right? King season opened up tomorrow. How you doing, buddy?
I'm doing good, getting really excited. Can't believe that there's a real NBA game tonight that counts towards the standings, so it's all going to hit us fast.
It is. On a quick note about one of the games tonight, what do you make of Phoenix? I mean, you've already got Bradley Beal, who's looking like he's doubtful, and then you've got Devin Booker on the injury report with his toe injury. It looks like he's going to play, but it looks like that could be a problem that plagues him all season.
Yeah, everybody thought that it was just going to be kind of aligned in the sky and it would be perfect for them, but when you have three guys like that and they're playing together for the first time, it's hard for them to all stay healthy at once, and it's hard for them, once they are in the court, to build that chemistry, figure out who's taking the final shot and things of that nature.
Yeah, no doubt. And every team's got to figure that out at the start of the season, but specifically Phoenix, especially coming off last year, Connor, where they didn't get a lot of run with Kevin Durant. Right when he came in, he got injured. Season comes to an end once he comes back. You know, it was one of those things where you didn't know how Phoenix was going to mesh. Now they had Bradley Beal. Who knows what's going to happen? Shout out to Chimezie Metu, Kings forward, sometimes a center last season, depending if they played some small ball. He's in Phoenix now, and he's probably going to get some run tonight with DeAndre Ayton out, huh, Connor?
Yeah, I think he worked his way into the rotation there. He looked pretty good in the preseason, and I think he's a guy that a lot of Kings fans wish well because he was a likable guy in his time in Sacramento.
Yeah, he was. He was a fun player to watch. A little bit inconsistent, but a lot of fun. He has some athleticism to his game. So as we talked about, tomorrow night, Kings open up in Utah. Before we get to that, we got to wrap up the preseason, of course. Kings end the preseason with a win, 116 to 113 over the Utah Jazz, who they'll be seeing tomorrow night. Malik Monk led the way, 23 points. Surprise, Colby Jones, 19 points, right behind Malik. Connor, anything from the last preseason game that stuck out to you?
Yeah, you mentioned it. Colby Jones, guy taken early second round. I think Monty McNair was just kind of hoping for a guy maybe a couple years down the road, but with how well he's been playing, I think it's going to be hard for him to look past, and he's probably going to find some minutes. Maybe it's a couple, but that's one thing Mike Brown's going to have to look at with how good he's played so far.
Yeah, he's earned what a lot of people did not think he could have coming into this season, and that's an opportunity to get into the rotation. We always talk about KC Okpala. Look at what he did last year. He started the first 4 games. Granted, Keegan was out the first 2, but that's Mike Brown. He's going to shuffle things around. And one thing we know for certain is if you're playing defense, because so many of the guys out there are not, you're going to stand out to Mike Brown. So if he gives them a boost on the offensive end, why not give the rookie a shot? We'll get into that a little bit more in a minute. You know, there was a lot of discussion. Does Mike Brown play the starters in the final preseason game, or do you let some of the other guys get some run? Mike Brown chose the latter. Connor, do you think that was the right decision? And anybody else really stick out besides the 2 leading scorers, Malik and Colby?
Yeah, I think it was the right decision. You know what you're going to get out of your top 3, so I didn't see any reason put them on the court, risk any injury, and it ended up being the only game of the preseason that they won in, so it tended to pay off. And you mentioned other guys that maybe impressed me in the preseason, and I think you got to look at Davion Mitchell. We've seen it so many times throughout his career in little bunches that he has a spark that he can play offense. And now when it comes to game 1, it's just going to be showing up and putting up consistent numbers. We know he can do it, but now it's time for us to see it consistently.
Yeah, and you talk about consistency. Davion Mitchell, only 5 games with multiple three-pointers last season. He ended the preseason with 2 games with multiple three-pointers. So hopefully that's a step in the right direction for Davion. So speaking of the guard position, it's kind of the raging debate here in Sacramento right now, Connor. What's Mike Brown going to do at the 2 guard? You got Chris Duarte, who is still a little bit banged up with a bruised knee. Kevin Huerter still struggling. gave a little bit of a better performance in the last preseason game, hit a couple more threes, but you'd want to see a little bit more from him. And then the aforementioned Colby Jones. I mean, if you're Mike Jones, if you're Mike Brown, Connor, which way are you looking to start the season out at the 2 guard?
Yeah, I think I'm going to go with the guy that started almost every game last year and got you to
Have to.
48 wins, and that's Kevin Herter. And I think that's what Mike Brown's going to do and what he should do. Kevin Herter, we know he's had a shooting slump in the playoffs last year, kind of spoiled over into the preseason, but I don't see any reason why you don't give him a start in game one and at least the first leg of this season. And then the bench, it's Malik Monk's unit. He's going to run the bench. He's your shooting guard. Can also play on ball off the bench. And that leaves Chris Duarte, who I think he's played decent, but I think he'll only see sparing minutes in the first couple games.
I don't think enough people are talking about the injury concern with Chris Duarte. Because here's the reality. The reason this guy left Indiana, or his tenure in Indiana was over, was because of injuries. He played well his first year, but he hasn't been able to stay on the court since then. We're talking about a bruised knee, Connor. It's his body. I'm not a doctor. And I know you're going to be conservative in the preseason, but at the same time, you would hope that's something that, does not keep a player out for a long time, especially Chris Duarte, who has had that injury concern his entire career.
Yeah, we saw his rookie season, what he could do in Indiana, and it looked like maybe he'd have a decent career there, but then second year riddled with injuries, and the Pacers were quick to move on from him with so many young pieces that they have. So why not take a move on Chris Duarte is what Monty McNair said. Add him as just another piece, another guy that if they play well, then that just adds to the bunch. Like Kessler, Edwards, those other guys, you get offensive production from guys that can defend. That's just the bonus, and that's just more minutes, more guys that can win you games.
Exactly. And you brought up a name that I was going to also bring up, Kessler Edwards, a guy that impressed somewhat during his minutes last year when he came over in that trade with the Brooklyn Nets. Is there anything from Kessler that you've seen that he's improved on, or do you see any reason that he's not being talked about a little bit more in that 2 guard role?
Yeah, I think it's just more of fit. I don't think he's really a 2 guard in this league. He's probably more of a wing 3, maybe even a 4. But I think there's too many bodies, and he hasn't been spectacular. So Mike Brown may put him in like Davion Mitchell, and Davion Mitchell obviously has a bigger role, but he may put him in for a couple defensive matchups, see if he can get a shot falling. But other than that, I think there's just too many other guys ahead of him for him to really crack the rotation.
Yeah, yeah. Anything's possible, though. I mean, we're talking about Mike Brown here, and if we have 2 guys that aren't playing good at that position, he's got to look somewhere. I mean, we don't want to put the cart before the horse, but that 2 guard position has to be more fruitful. Even Malik Monk, he scored 23 in the last preseason game against Utah, but there's still more to be had with Malik. He talks about, don't worry, playoff Malik will be there when the regular season starts. Well, guess what? It starts tomorrow night. Hopefully he shows up. So once again, you're joining the Sixth Kings podcast. We appreciate it. That's Connor. I am Ryan in Sacktown. Connor, I know you're a big rankings guy. You're always scouring reports. ESPN came out with their season predictions for the NBA. Obviously, season kicks off tonight. Couple of good games. But we don't want to talk about those games. We want to talk about the Kings. One thing that stood out to me, Connor, the Kings are ranked 13th. I think that is a fair ranking. I don't have an issue with that. But what I do have an issue with is some of the teams ahead of the Kings. What did you make of that, Connor?
Yeah, it's the same story that the hype in the Pacific Division with these veteran-led teams, the Clippers, the Lakers, now the Suns jump in, the Warriors, every other team in the division have aging veterans. They're probably going to have Hall of Famers left and right, but these are guys that are towards the end of their prime or out of their prime. And yeah, NBA so-called experts always seem to put them ahead of the bunch just because their names are LeBron James, Kawhi Leonard. They don't really care that they haven't been able to stay on the court the last couple of years. They just think that it's magically all going to work out. They're all going to play 82 games and win a championship, which just isn't reality.
Yeah, history, exactly what you said, Connor, does not show us that they're going to be on the floor for 82. I mean, take away injury with load management, they're typically not going to be on the floor for 82. New load management rules in effect this season. If you miss more than 25 games, then you are not eligible for postseason awards. Do you think that's going to temper how the teams approach load management with the players?
I don't really think it accomplishes anything at the end of the day because you can talk about end of season awards and the debate of whether or not players put that much meaning into that. At the end of the day, the players are there to win a championship, and obviously winning end of season awards, there's a lot of contract bonuses and things like that, and they look good, but at the end of the day, these teams, the players, their goals to win a championship, their mind, at least it shouldn't be on anything else.
Yeah, and what Connor was referencing as well, the Kings at 13 are picked to win the Pacific Division, yet every other team in the Pacific is ahead of the Kings in the ESPN rankings. Those, go check them out. I actually think they're credible because it is a bunch of the ESPN staff writers and guys that follow the NBA as a whole. So I'm okay with that. We were talking off air for a second about platforms and people writing articles for shock value. And, you know, sometimes some of those lists are a little bit fishy, but this is one worth checking out. There's some good information in it. All right, Con, let's talk about the season. So big expectations here in Sacramento. We're going to look a little bit past tomorrow night and even Friday night when the Kings open up at home against Golden State Warriors. Connor, what's your number? Where are the Kings going to finish in terms of wins this year and why?
Yeah, it's the number one question, and I've had a lot of time to think about it. And you mentioned a lot of the factors, the injury bug. Does it catch up with the Kings this year? Does Monty McNair's strategy of kind of just keeping the same squad and not adding big pieces, does that pay off? Or you hear a lot of rumblings that the Kings are going to regress this year because they didn't make any big moves. At the end of the day, I don't really agree with any of that, and I think that now that you have a year of playoff experience under your belt, you have two leaders in Fox and Sabonis, and now a young star in Keegan Murray. I don't see why not. If they stay healthy, they can't be competing at the top of the West. So you asked for the magic number, and I think last year they tried to hit it. This year they will. I think they win 51 games, and they'll be the 2 seed in the Western Conference.
So 51 games for the record. Sea Dogs going 51 this season for the Kings. So where are those extra few wins going to come from in your eyes this season? Where do the Kings have to get those?
Yeah, those are going to come at home against teams that they should beat that they dropped last year. Now you have more experience playing at Golden One, the playoff atmosphere. The home record was the biggest problem last season, and now you get the group of guys together again, you add some support here and there. I think that they should be able to win those games at home that they dropped against teams like San Antonio and Houston last year, and maybe steal a couple on the road against some of the Eastern Conference powerhouses.
Yeah, and I think here's the line that I draw in the sand with some of those teams they lost to at home, right? There were a lot of injuries, as we've already referenced a little bit earlier in the show, especially in the Western Conference. And the Kings got really lucky, specifically right at the start of the second half after the All-Star break. And I don't see some of the major players in the West having injuries like they had last year. I don't think it's going to happen. Therefore, there is very little wiggle room for the Kings to be able to lose to a San Antonio, to lose to Toronto the way they did at home, to lose to Charlotte. You can't do it. Those are wins that need to be had, whether they are home or on the road, because this is a whole different Western Conference this year, arguably probably the deeper conference, in my opinion. What do you think, Connor?
Yeah, I think the West is still the better conference, and I think it has been for most of the recent future. I think that you look at the Western Conference as a whole, and there's a lot of teams that are expected to do good. There's a lot of veteran teams, and then there's a lot of young teams now that have been kind of hovering around the bottom quarter of the standings the last few years. And now there's some higher expectations for teams like the Rockets, the Thunder, maybe even the Blazers, even though they're projected to be maybe one of the worst teams in the league. Even at the bottom of the Western Conference, there's still teams that have a lot of promise.
Yeah, there is, and there's teams that are predicted to do well, specifically Oklahoma, or not Oklahoma City, excuse me, Memphis. Steven Adams, he is out for the season. That's going to be a huge blow for them. So there's going to be some shuffling there, and there will be a surprise team or two. Welcome to the show, City Lights. Appreciate you chiming in. Connor, I'm going to kick this one to you. City Lights wants to know, what do you guys think about Sasha taking Barnes' spot in the starting rotation?
Yeah, it's a great question, but I don't think that that's going to be something that Mike Brown's looking at for a while. And I think the reason is Harrison Barnes, he's consummate professional. He gets the job done. I think Kings fans just kind of turned on him for that one shot that he missed in the playoffs. And he's still a really good player. He's going to give you his 15 quiet points. He's going to do the dirty work. He's going to do the things that you need a guy in your team to do. And when it comes to Sasha, this guy has never played a game in the NBA, so it's going to take a adjustment period of time from the Euro League where he won the MVP to now the NBA. And I see him as a big part of the bench role, but I don't know about the starting lineup yet. And you're going to have to wait. Mike Brown's going to have to get a solid at least 25, 30 game sample size to even start to consider that decision if Barnes isn't producing.
So let's take injuries out of the question, okay? Let's say Harrison doesn't go down. Let's say the Kings have everybody, right? What is the situation and what is the role in your eyes for Sasha in those first 25 games? How is Mike Brown going to use him to establish that sample size?
Yeah, it's really tough because off the bench you have a lot of guys competing for those minutes. Can't forget about Trey Lyles, who, after Malik Monk, was probably the biggest bench player on the team last year, and he's not off the team. He's still there, so he's going to be competing, and I think he deserves a lot of those minutes over Sasha right now. So Mike Brown's going to be looking to put Sasha in, have him start to get comfortable in the offense, hit his catch and shoot threes, hit corner threes, move off the ball, do things that they don't have in the Euro League. That it's a lot faster game. You have to keep up with the pace of the NBA, and I just want to see how he fits in. It's going to be interesting to see how Kings fans react if he has a night tomorrow where he shoots 3 of 10. Are fans going to be quick to pull him and just destroy the guy, or are they going to give him the proper welcome that he deserves and time to adjust? Because it's not all going to be perfect day one.
No, it's not. I would be surprised if Sasha gets 10 shots tomorrow, quite frankly. I don't think he's going to get that kind of run unless, he is on fire, which could happen. He's a heck of a shooter. So to answer your question, City Lights, I think Sasha is going to be one of those guys that's going to have to excel in the opportunities that he gets. I also think that he's going to have a little bit less room for that transition time between the EuroLeague and the NBA because he's in his late 20s, because he was the EuroLeague MVP. Now, that being said, I also think that if there's a situation to step into with the style of Sasha's game, this is the perfect situation. Granted, the offense can be a little tricky to pick up because of the different reads that are really based off of playing with the guys and understanding what a guy's going to do and what the defense is doing. But for a spot-up shooter, you look at the success that Keegan Murray had last year. That role needs to be filled. Not to say that Keegan won't be getting his fill from behind the three-point line, but Keegan's going to be expected to be more aggressive, put the ball on the floor like you've seen a little bit in the preseason. And Sasha he's going to get spot duty. He's a great guy. If a team breaks into his own defense, I'm immediately thinking about Sasha because he is worth that spot on the floor for his offense. But defensively, that's where it's going to be tricky because that's going to be the adjustment that is going to be the hardest. but he is also playing on a bad defensive team. So it's not like he's going to stick out like a sore thumb, so to say. So, Connor, you have 50 wins, or you have 51 wins. Where does 51 wins put the Kings in the Western Conference this year?
Yeah, I think it puts them at lucky number 2. I think that the
Wow.
Nuggets are going to be ahead of them, and I don't really believe the narrative that all these other teams that weren't healthy last year are going to be perfect this year and just all take the league by storm. The teams like the Clippers, all the teams in the Kings division, basically, that
You can
apparently
throw the
never.
Clippers out. Throw the Clippers out.
Yeah, I mean, we've seen that
Throw them out.
experiment's over, I think.
Yeah.
And unless they shock the world, I had them last year. Kawhi Leonard, MVP, Clippers in the finals. I'm done with that. It's just the same thing, load management. Him and Paul George, I don't mean they are never on the court together. And same thing with the Lakers. LeBron James, Anthony Davis. Now they're making Austin Reeves seem like he's the next superstar in the NBA, which is a joke. But then you have
Hold on, hold on. He's not a superstar, but he plays a great third and a great role to LeBron and AD. You do have to say that.
Yeah, he does. I just think that since he's on the Lakers, there's so much hype and so much media bias around him because he played on Team USA. He had a
Fair.
breakout year, and I don't think that he's just going to be a piece that the Lakers need to win a championship.
Fair. Yeah. It's going to come down to AD. That you know what you're going to get out of LeBron. You know he will be quick to be back to the court if the Lakers are still in it, but AD is the complete wild card there. So if your ceiling's 51 for the Kings, we're talking best case. What is your floor? What are the circumstances that you could see the Kings struggling this year?
Yeah, I think the name of the game is injuries, and if we lose Fox, we lose Sabonis, if we lose Keegan Murray, those are the 3 biggest pieces on this team for any extended period of time. Those are wins that you had last year that are now going to be taken away. So if I'm expecting 3 more wins this year, I'm expecting the team to be healthy again. And
Yeah.
obviously, there's going to be injuries here and there, but you talk about a floor. If one of the guys goes down, I could see them winning probably a little north of 40 games this year.
It's still a good number. Think about that 40 number last year. Everybody was called crazy if you were saying 40. Summer League guy, Kings, 40 wins. Like, and they did it. It's like nuts. But um, if somebody goes down, that changes everything drastically. Here's the thing. If it's not working, Monty McNair has built in the flexibility to make a move. And the Kings, they've been very targeted. Everything has been so strategic, and it's worked out today. Monty has been amazing for Sacramento. But if it's not working out, he's going to have that same approach going after a guy. I still think there's a couple guys in mind, but you look at Harrison Barnes' contract. I mean, $17 million a year, that's a heck of a deal for somebody like Harrison. And that contract can be moved after December. So there's some wiggle room. You got Malik Monk on an expiring deal. So things can be done if it's not going to work, but I don't think we're going to get there. And quite honestly, if the Kings have another season health wise like they had last year, we need to give the trainer a signing bonus. They need to be the highest paid trainer in the NBA because everybody's taking notice of the Kings' health, yet they're not taking notice of everything else surrounding it. And I think that's kind of funny, huh, Connor?
Yeah, I think that the Kings' health last year, everyone just thinks that they're only going to be good because they had a year of health. And I don't know if I'm with everybody else, but I don't think last year was an anomaly. I don't think that it's just a 1 year thing. Monty McNair has built this team strategically to last for more than a year and to try to build a little piece every year. Last year, they lost in game 7 of the first round. This year, your goal, get in the second round, win some games. It's not all going to happen at once, but I think the moves that he's made, he never panics. And if things go south, then I trust him to make the proper
Right.
moves.
Right. So you brought up a second round. The Kings need to at least get to that second round. Do you think that's kind of the floor of the expectations of this fan base in Sacramento this year?
Yeah, and I think it should because it's the next closest thing after what you did last season. took the defending champions to a game 7. Everybody was impressed. Everybody was shocked by that. Obviously, a lot of people were disappointed with how the season ended, but that's when you did have some injuries catch up with you. Sabonis'
Right.
thumb, him getting stomped on, Fox's finger, and now,
The stomp. Do you think that had something to do with it? I'm still in the middle of that one.
yeah, a lot of controversy over that,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
the Warriors found some sort of recipe, and Sabonis wasn't stomped on any other game, so.
No, he was not. This is true. This is true. So I'm going to give my prediction tomorrow. Speaking of tomorrow, we've got a full lineup of programming for you to kick off the Kings season. 4 o'clock on If You Don't Like That. Grant and Jerry, the boys are back in town. That's right. Mr. Jim Bob Bole will be stopping by. And then also, I will have the pregame coverage on If You Don't Like That. Grant and Jerry will be back at halftime, and then Grant and I will wrap up the night with the post game, hopefully talking about a win. I'm going to ask you the same question that Grant asked me yesterday. If I gave you a ticket to say the Kings will go 1-1 in these first 2 games, are you cashing that?
Yeah, I am, and I think it's because obviously that Warriors game people look at as a revenge tour. They need to have that game on their home floor, but I think if you can go into Utah on the road on opening night, a team that has a lot of question marks around it, and win that game, just get your win out of the way in the first game, and then the Warriors game you can play with a little more free with freedom and play with fire and see what happens. I think fans, if they could pick a game, they're gonna take the Warriors as the win, but 2-0 I don't think is out of the ordinary, but you can absolutely not start 0-2 and start that trend like they did last year, because I don't think this year they don't have that room for error that they did last year starting
No,
0-4.
no, they don't. And uh, let's be honest, 0-2 is a possibility. It really is. Utah has played Sacramento incredibly tough. Especially last season. Walker Kessler, how about him in Utah? Hell of a young talent at center. But that's a tough place to play, Utah. Little bit of elevation. You worry about the Kings and their big men. Sabonis gets in foul trouble. Then you've got to turn to McGee, possibly Len. What's going on with Trey Lyles dealing with a sprained calf or a strained calf? So that's the one to me you have to have, but it could easily go either way. Now, the Golden State game worries me to a degree. I'm not so worried about the revenge aspect of it. What I'm worried about is the ability for the Kings to go small, because they had success going small against the Warriors last year. And if Trey Lyles isn't in the lineup, that's going to throw a monkey wrench in Mike Brown's plans.
Yeah, that's a great point. I think if that's the case, then you have to look towards a guy like Colby Jones, a guy like Sasha Vezenkov to come in, fill the gap, spread out the floor, and play that little small ball four that Mike Brown would need in that situation, because I don't think people really give Trey Lyles the credit and the impact that he has on this team. If you don't have Trey Lyles, that's a pretty big piece missing.
It is. It is. And Trey was happy to get the money that he got. Again, I think a very fair deal for his value for the Kings. Very fair to them. But also, he's happy to be back in Sacramento. So that's all good and well. Speaks to the culture that everybody talks about. We said last week Mike Brown had everybody sign the all-in agreement again. We talked a little bit about the question marks with Utah. Let's talk a little bit about Golden State. They look a bit different this year with Chris Paul. And I'm not sure if it's for the better or for the worse. What are you seeing with Golden State?
Yeah, it's really interesting what they did to go out, make a trade for a veteran point guard like Chris Paul, the exit of Jordan Poole to Washington.
How did they get off that contract? That still amazes me.
Yeah, you have Andrew Wiggins returning. Hopefully he can be in the lineup a lot more last year, and hopefully he's past the issues he had off the court last year. And Kevon Looney, I think he's an integral part of that team, what he did in the playoffs. He's a core big man right there that you need. And then
Yep.
Splash Brothers are still there. They're just a year older. So you know what Steph Curry's going to do. We saw it in the preseason. He had a game winning three. I think it's up to Klay Thompson this year. He has to. It's a contract year for him. He needs to produce. There's been rumors he's going to test free agency, so if he's going to be not stick around, he better play well to get his value up.
If Chris Paul can stay healthy, a lot of people didn't think Chris Paul was going to start there, and it looks like he's going to start. If he can stay healthy, this could theoretically just open that window a little bit bigger for the Warriors for this year. And I say that because Steph Curry is going to get to play off the ball. And that's something that's going to be a little bit different from last season. And that changes the dynamic, and that does help Klay Thompson out. Another guy the Warriors are going to look to, Jonathan Kuminga. A lot of talk around him in the preseason. The Warriors have high expectations for him. He's a lengthy guy, talented, can shoot the rock, can take it to the hole. So who knows? I think it's going to be, can they stay healthy? Because that was their big problem last year.
Yeah, and hearing for the first time that Steph Curry and Klay Thompson could both be playing off ball, that has to be a huge headache for other coaches
Yes.
trying to drop that defensive plan.
It turns back the time for them. It absolutely does. And if one thing does not go away with age, it's shooting. And I think Klay, having missed the time he did with the ACL, I think this is just his year to bounce back. I mean, you could even throw his name in the hat for most improved player this year, depending on how the Warriors do. So again, you are joining the 16 or the Sixth Kings podcast. This is Connor in Danzy. No, Connor Danzy. I'm in Ryan Sacktown. Excuse me there. So Kings open up tomorrow. Again, check out the programming tomorrow night on If You Don't Like That, starting at 4:00, Grant and Jerry. And then also super excited to let everybody know Grant and I are going to be heading up the coverage for the Kings on the PSF app. Pro Sports Fans, go download that right now. You can find it in the Google Store, Apple Store, free to download. It gives fans a seat at the table. You get to choose the teams that you want to cover, you want to pay attention to, and you've got original content from great media casters and content creators giving you live updates during the games, corresponding with them during live casts. So go download that. It's going to be a lot of fun. Grant and I are super excited for the app. Connor, I know you had a chance to check out the app. What are your thoughts been so far?
Yeah, I think that this is going to be something that we look a few years down the line. There's going to be a lot of companies trying to do something similar to it. It's going to have competition. I think it's going to really grow in the next few years. And if you want to learn more about the app, just check out Grant's show with Sean on Monday. He kind of broke down the app,
Great
what
point.
they're looking to do in the future, and Sean's the president of it, and it just looks like it's going well, and they're just still adding development, and it's only going to get better from here.
Yeah, absolutely. Connor's right. Sean Salisbury, great analyst and an amazing person. But he really broke down what having a seat at the table as a fan means, both to the app and the creators, but also to the fans. So go check that out as well. So we're going to get ready to wrap things up really quick here in a second. But Connor, where's your anxiety level? Let's just go there. We're going to end the show here. Where is your anxiety level this season with this team?
Yeah, I'm really excited, but at the same time, I'm really nervous because I talk about the comparison. I'm a big football guy, and the last thing I want to see is the Kings do what the New York Giants have done this year: is have a great season, come out of nowhere, make the playoffs, win a playoff game, and then next year it looks like you forgot how to play football and you're on a JV field. So the Kings, I think they're a team that has high expectations, and there's still people across the country, reporters and fans, that still don't think the Kings are all that. And I think this is the year they prove to everybody what they can do and how good of a powerhouse they can be in the West, not just this year, but for years to come.
So, Connor, our boy City Lights is going in on your boy Daniel Jones. Any retort?
Yeah, I'll defend that guy for as long as he lives. He's one of my favorite players in the league, and I can't believe I'm hearing nonsense that Tyrod Taylor should be the starting quarterback.
Oh man, poor. It's been tough to watch for New York, but hey, maybe you score Marvin Harrison Jr. in the draft. If you get a high pick, who knows? Maybe that's the way the Giants want to go this year. But they're coming off. They got their second win of the season this week. So there you go, man.
Yeah, I don't think you can give up hope yet. They had a brutal schedule first month of the season. Now
It
it's starting to slow
was.
down.
It
So
was brutal. It was brutal. Well, this is a basketball show, so we'll get back to basketball. So I do. Oh, Troy, Sea Dog's the goat. Sea Dog is the goat. So, should we change your handle to Sea Dog Goat or Sea Goat 25? What do you think?
it sounds like a
Seagoat
good idea.
25. I like it. Okay, so we started this show because 16 years since the Kings made the playoffs, and we talked about that forever. Well, guess what? Done. Made the playoffs last year. We know that they're 16 wins away from winning a championship, just like every other team in the NBA. Connor, you're a first-generation Kings playoff fan. Did it meet your expectations, that first round series with the Warriors, in terms of atmosphere and fanfare and just the electricity in the city? And is it just something that you're yearning for more? Like, it's got to happen tomorrow.
Yeah, I was really impressed with it, and just watching all those games, they were thrillers. Every possession, you're on the edge of your seat, and I think one thing that's not spoken about enough, if when the Sacramento Kings are a good basketball team, this city comes to life from not only downtown Sacramento but the surrounding areas. They'll support this team until they die, and we saw last year Golden One and Doko and the atmosphere it can be down there, and if they can continue that and get it back to the glory days and maybe even improve what they did in the glory days, then this city's going to be triumphant for a while.
Well, Connor, some would say that the fans brought it too hard at Golden One Center last year. No names mentioned, Mike Brown. Anyways, I thought that was interesting. And if you live around the arena or in the communities right around there, the beam was lit last night. I don't know if you saw that, Connor, but that was pretty cool. Got everybody that saw it a little bit excited for Kings basketball. So Kings kick it off tomorrow night in Utah, 6:30 tip Pacific time. Reminder, 4 o'clock, Grant and Jerry on If You Don't Like That on Grant's YouTube channel. We will have full coverage on the same channel for pregame, halftime, and postgame. We can't wait for that, so go check that out. Follow us on Twitter. Our handles are right there for updates. And you know what? Troy is going to throw in a last-second question. Troy, you get the last word from Connor today. What are your thoughts on JaVale McGee, Connor?
My thoughts are that he was a really good pickup from Mike Brown and fills an area of need that this team desperately needs this season, and that's a guy that can come off the bench and get rebounds and protect the rim. I think that's one of the most underrated aspects of his game. When's the last time the Kings have had a shot blocker on their team? And
True.
that's another guy that on offense, we can talk about that duo with Malik Monk, the pick and roll. JaVale McGee's a lob threat, and he's been around for a long time, so he's not going to be making those mistakes that your young guys are.
No. Did JaVale take a 3 in the preseason? I was trying to remember if it was him that took a 3. Was it Connor?
I remember Alex Len. He hit that.
Oh, it was Len. That's right. It was Alex Len. Yeah, I think JaVale's kind of got that question. There's a little intrigue there. I mean, I think one big thing coming out of media day was how impressed all of the media was with JaVale and just the level of leadership and just I don't want to call it like moxie, but confidence. And that bleeds over into a relatively young locker room. So we're looking forward to see what he will do tomorrow. So Connor, any last words before you do? I want to say a special thanks, Troy, City Lights, everybody else who has commented and are watching live on YouTube. Don't forget, catch the replay. Tell a friend. You can download the podcast on Apple Podcast Store. You can Spotify, all of them. You can find the Sixth Kings podcast there. Connor, last words, buddy.
Yeah, we appreciate all the questions, all the viewers. Even if you just hop in for a couple minutes, ask your questions, we'll get to you. And we look forward to this season covering the Kings through what hopefully is a really good journey to the finish.
Amen. Amen, my friend. All right. Well, happy tip-off eve for the Kings, buddy. Thanks for showing up good and great as you always do. We appreciate everybody out there listening. Have a great night, and we will see you tomorrow for Sacramento Kings basketball 2023-24. Can't wait.